Good afternoon, beautiful people, and happy sensational Saturday. I hope today has brought you nothing but reasons to smile. And if it hasn't, boy, do I have reasons for you today. I have had guests before, and they all bring such a special element to my show. And as you know, with the Pickled Heart, the whole thing is to bring love, hope, and courage to everybody that watches or everybody that listens. And we bring it from different areas, different aspects all around the world, and different stories of triumph, or sometimes we get into stories that may not be so happy in the beginning, but we always find the silver lining. Well, today I have with me somebody who I have followed for quite a while. She's been a great inspiration to me and to many. I can't say it enough that by the time you leave here today, you will have either laughed at me or with me or us, because she sure does come as a huge beacon of love and light. She'll be with us here shortly. She is in a different area, so I am blessed, and I would say that I am favored to have such an awesome guest. So what I will do first is read her bio, which is amazing. And so today, I'm sure that you've seen the pictures. I am going to be, this is just one of the many things that she's done, but it was one thing I want to talk about because, as you all know, I am very much an advocate of meditation. So I'm bringing you the best of the best. Farzana, she comes with 37 years of experience in meditation and over 24 years of experience in the field of self-development. Farzana is a 3-time best-selling author and co-author, speaking at multinational corporations, TED Talks, and many leadership events around the globe. She has earned herself the title of the best-kept secret to a small army of professional actors, executives, and athletes in the NHL, NFL, FIFA, and PGA. Farzana began her career in the coaching and motivational field in 1997 under the mentorship of Anthony Robbins and Joseph McClendon III. Her early studies were in psychology and communications, and she is currently a teacher of applied neuroplasticity, hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, coaching, and meditation. She lends her skill set to neuroscientists at UVIC, UBC, and Johns Hopkins on mindfulness. Ultimately, Farzana believes in the constant of self, and that when you know who you truly are and what you want, nothing can stop you. Farzana believes that events pass, emotions don't last, and that you are always. I read this bio and I was like, wow, she is even bigger than I thought. She'll be on here shortly, like I said, but here was one of the things that she has done that I was very interested in. I cheat at meditation, and it says Zen in 60 seconds. So I was going to save this for when she comes on, but she can listen to it later or see this part. So I did the book and I did the process. So the beautiful part about this book is that actually is a teacher. And it teaches you in language that you can understand. And I'm not saying that sometimes we need help to understand, but what I'm saying is it always helps when you're entering a new subject or a new matter that you can actually understand it in a way that sticks and not get lost in words or feel defeated by the concept. So the book is just so easy. I'm trying to find one of my favorite pages. So easy to understand. And you guys got to remember I marked through all my stuff, so excuse the markings. But it's got a lot of insight, not just on words, but the science, but not too much science that you feel lost about it. So I do want to remind you that I am using StreamYard today. And if for any reason you want to really get involved in this conversation, which I wish you would, and you have questions, or maybe you just want to know more or how to contact or whatever it is, if you will allow StreamYard the access, and then you can put in the comments and I can read them live. Depending on where you're coming from, I can generally get them, whether it's Facebook or YouTube. So I know that you guys have been watching and I have been kind of on the road. So I am excited to be back here and doing these interviews. So I will go ahead and start, and she will be here shortly. So one of the things that I noticed about I Cheat Meditation, and we'll talk more about this as she comes on, is she also has written 20 Beautiful Women, Volume 2. So for those of you who like reading, I would say that based off this book and the other work she's done, it's worth the read. I haven't read that one yet. And what we can look forward to is I cheat at sleep, I cheat at confidence, I cheat at happiness, and I cheat at life. So those are all upcoming from Miss Farzana. But the dedication was really sweet. And it said, "To Papa, the very first feminist I ever knew. Thank you for believing in me and always encouraging me in my work. I'm sorry I didn't finish my book in time for you to read it. You are missed." I am excited. I'm so excited, you guys. Again, this is like big for me because I have followed her for years. So I am so excited to have her on. Let me add her now. Well, hello.
I'm so excited to be here.
I am thrilled. I've kind of gave away a few things, but I'm thankful that you're here. You guys, I hope you enjoyed this interview. We're going to go over her book and a few other things, but I want to make sure first I'm pronouncing your first name right, because I've never spoke to you in this sense. I've always just associated with you. So is it Farzana?
It is.
It is beautiful. And then the last name, is it Jeraj?
Jeraj.
Jeraj. So you do pronounce the J's. Okay, just making sure. Okay, thank you.
Jeraj, yeah.
Thank you again for being here. So what I have brought was one of your many things, and this is the I Cheat at Meditation. I absolutely love it. And I was telling the audience how the book is a gift, but when they hear your voice on here, that takes you to a whole nother planet in itself. You are gifted, not just in writing and in doing this, but I have to ask, the dedication to your papa, was that your father or grandfather?
Well, kind of both, actually.
Really? Okay.
So my grandfather died just before it was published. Oh. But between my father and my grandfather, my mom is a very significant figure in my life, but they were really feminists. And I think that statement can absolutely apply to my father, but it was also because my grandfather had died.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I seen that and it was so touching.
Yeah, he was so funny. He in a culture and community of doctors and lawyers and whatnot, my grandfather always said that the work that I did was really, really important. And he was like, "I'm going to buy 1,000 copies when it's published, and I'm just going to give it to all my friends." So.
So let me ask you, I did read in here about, the 4-year-old, when you were 4-year-old experience of the Shangri-La for yourself, but before I go into that, if there was one thing that pushed you towards teaching meditation, was it because of that experience or was it a calling? What was it about meditation?
Yeah. Well, in truth, meditation was my first self-help tool. I didn't know this. I was younger. I was actually 3. I wasn't 4 or 5 years old. My mom actually was like, "No, actually, you're younger." But because it was so easy for me, because it was always there for me when I was bullied, when I went through a lot of, discrimination for various reasons growing up, that was my primary tool. It made it so that I didn't hold on to anger or bitterness. It gave me the perspective to make a choice of how I wanted to move forward, what I wanted to learn from the difficult situations that I went through. And it gave me space. It gave me space to filter through a lot of things. It gave me space and I know you've read it, so to realize that the things that were going on in my life could never actually touch who I was at the core of my being. Mm-hmm. That there's something, whether you wanted to call it your soul, your essence, your identity, your consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that makes you you. And that's the part of you that as you're growing up and you sort of start to notice something, like when you're a child and you start to notice that someone else does something a little differently from your parents, and you're like, actually, I really like the way they did that. I'm going to take that on. There's a part of you that chooses that, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, meditation was really the self-help tool that gave me the space to empower my consciousness to make decisions for myself. to be in touch with who I was. And so even though went through mentorship with Tony Robbins and Justin McClendon and some amazing people, degrees in psychology and, cognitive behavior and stuff like that, that was really my first tool. And the more what's really cool is neuroscience fields and all the fields of psychology are now realizing the benefits of it. And I think it's great to talk through and have structure for a lot of your challenges and issues. But I also think that where some of that deeper emotional work is and the discovery of the roots comes from sitting with yourself.
Yes.
Sitting through what can be very uncomfortable conversations in your own mind.
Yes. And so, and in that, I looking at where I am now and what I had to go through with that for myself to be who I am today, this was never something that was in my life to see. So I think about how many steps somebody like yourself who may have experienced this early, like how far ahead you must be, and that's why I appreciate this book, because it says, wait, let me help you get there. And I'm going to show you steps instead of maybe taking X amount of years to finally get comfortable with meditation. So,
I would say though that it I wrote it on the outside, on the cover of the book. It's on the back of the book, that it doesn't take a lifetime to get the benefits of it. It really doesn't. You could start today. Everything in your body was built to meditate. What I will say is I still have clutter in my mind. I run multiple businesses. I do these kinds of things. We have lots of time zone mix-ups. Stuff comes up. And what I would say is I think that because I've been meditating my whole life, my mind might be a little less cluttered.
Right.
There's still clutter. It's just sort of the nice piles in my brain, in my ecosystem. Void of things. I have all kinds of things, ideas, thoughts, projects, plans, things that didn't come to fruition in my life. And it's all there. That I don't hold the same emotion on it.
Right.
I don't get triggered when things come up in the same way.
Yeah, no, that's important. And so one of the things that I found with clients that I've had is meditation wasn't something they were introduced to. So first they had to just accept that it's not some taboo because of where they come from and their types of religions like meditation. Well, what does that mean? Is that so? I'm very thankful for this tool. Like I will definitely make sure that I refer it because like you said, it teaches us like now you start from where you're at now. And I think that's so important. So for anybody who's listening and feels like they've waited too long or, starting now would be backwards. I want to encourage you to go forward with confidence and to get a tool, to get this book for starters anyway, but to also understand that you can start from here and that you haven't lost anything. You're only going to gain. So I think that's so important. The other thing is I want to mention to the readers of the creativity of the format. Did you start writing it and go, you know what, I want to give them something to listen to? You do the 7 steps and 2 to 6 are so fundamental. And I'm not going to give them all away because the readers need to read it. But I think that it was amazing. Did you originally come up with that concept? Like, I'm going to write it, but I'm also going to add an audio to it. Was that the way that it was going to best work for you? Or were you guided in that direction? How did that come up?
I knew from the very get-go that the audio had to be there. So it's not enough just to read the steps. And I say that a bunch of times in the book. There's something to be said for, bless her, because she was a lovely woman. I had this chemistry teacher in high school, and she would read from the textbook. And I sometimes there was no intention in her voice whatsoever. And I remember her trying to explain the concept of moles and molarity. And it's like, I just couldn't grasp the concept. And then I had someone else who was a friend who was of my brother's, who was a pharmacist. And she explained it to me in 5 minutes. And I was like, I have been struggling with this. And no matter how many times I read the textbook, I couldn't quite get it off the page. And when someone else kind of explained it to me with intention, all of a sudden I got it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's something to be said for it. I still don't consider, I know people call me an expert in meditation. And yes, I have been meditating for 38 years now at this point. And what I will say is that every day there is something new. There's more awareness. There's more stuff. And I kind of think of myself more as like a Sherpa. It's someone
Okay.
who's been up that mountain a bunch of times. I know exactly how to go there, and I'll take you on the easiest path to get there. And there's something to be said for guidance with intention and words that are
Yes.
spoken with meaning, right? The
Mhm.
difference between someone who speaks from intention versus someone who reads a speech,
Right.
right? And it doesn't mean that that person who's reading their speech doesn't care about it. They're just not able to necessarily convey it all the time. And
Mhm.
that for me, I knew that the audio was like absolutely necessary. There's something about intention that I think carries through in our voices, and voice is such a powerful thing.
Yes,
And
it is.
so, yeah,
So it's so simple too. I will tell people, like, if you're like, oh, well, I don't like to go from a book to a site to this. It is so seamless. When I tell you I clicked on it and I went right to the recordings, I didn't have to go through, things didn't pop up, they didn't get in the way. It was so seamless. So I don't want, for those of you who are like, yeah, but I don't want to read and click off to something. It is so seamless and it is so powerful. It's just like Farzana said, to read it would be reading it. If you don't incorporate it, I mean, the book is just the book. So you need to make sure you do that part.
I mean, if you only just did the audio and like didn't read the book at all, that would work too. But I tried to really make the book fun to read.
Right. And it was. I am a person who really appreciated the pictures, the maps, that you used really good illustrations too. They weren't just, I mean, there's some that I'll go over, but on page 23, you had mentioned something, and I love the blue in the book because my mind and my eyes naturally gravitated towards what was in the boxes and what was in the stuff. So one of the things on page 23, I put like 100%, like I really mark in my books. I don't read my book just to read them. I get involved in my book. So you don't have to be special, gifted, or endowed by the powers that be to get the benefits of meditation. You don't have to be spiritual to meditate. That was big. That was a big statement. And I think people need to understand that, because some people feel like they have to be at a certain space or place or beingness or togetherness or association to meditate. But it's a personal job. It's an inside job. This is the next thing that I really liked. You said a child's mind only needs exposure to meditation. I would love to see schools. This is one of my life dreams, is to see schools incorporate self-awareness as a subject matter, right? Like science or English, or, I don't remember ever till college being able to pick something that had philosophy or, anything, some kind of sciences. But as far as learning it during the most developmental and tender years of learning, I don't remember ever having any type of self-awareness. So, but explain that maybe to the audience of why a child's mind can accept this more than an adult mind, for those who may not get that part.
Well, part of it is, and I talk about the mind wandering mode or the default mode that neuroscience talks about, and it's the state where your mind can freely go anywhere. It's a really creative space, and it's something that as adults, we train ourselves away from that ability to allow our consciousness to flow freely. And children have they've not been told no, they've not been told stop daydreaming, get your head out of the clouds, they've not been told all of those things. So they're really great at allowing their mind to go anywhere. They're great at coming up with creative solutions. They're great at, resilience, because they're great at creativity. They're great at letting things go. And because no one has told them they can't do this, because no one has told them that it's difficult, no one has told them all of those things, they're able to do it with ease, right? It's the moment that we set expectations, good or bad, that we start to restrict our ability to do things.
Yeah, and you use really good examples in your book too, about firewalling and this and that. So I'm telling you, you really need to get the book. And on page 24 and 25, this was really powerful to me too. It was like, why do I meditate? And there was a part that I pulled out of here too. You said, to me, it is a reminder of who I truly am and all of my potential, me at my best. My minute and my meditation practice is a reminder of myself at the core of my being, the me that exists beyond the experiences and events of my life. That is it. That was so well put, because that's the way I feel. And I'm trying to help clients with it, I tell them, go in there with nothing but to be just one, just to go into who you are, because we forget. We get out here in this busy, place, this environment. It's almost like New York City all the time around us, because our mind, through our experiences and things that we've lived and things that we've done and things that we're anticipating. And so I love it. I don't know how I survived without meditation. And then now having your 60 seconds to Zen, I really feel like I'm cheating. Just so you know, I was like, wow, like how does this happen? So I love that. I love that. And
there is a chapter that says why you're not really cheating.
I did read that. But there is a part, I guess, where I feel like you allow the gift of being able to make it easier for people to get, even those of us who are passionate about trying our best to, because I don't fight meditation. I feel like if I don't meditate, I've cheated myself. Like I feel like I've messed up for myself. I will make a way to meditate, whether it's get up earlier if I'm on the road or do whatever I need to do. But it's something that I have pleasure in finding time to do. So I'm thankful that you have simplified this even more when I thought I'd already had it all kind of figured out. We never have it all figured out, but I thought for me and myself, I had found my best ways. And so you've really helped me with that. So I appreciate you on that.
Oh, wow.
On the end of page 25, you said, whether meditation is a spiritual process for you or one of self-awareness and empowerment, it is still a process of training your brain to consistently access a state of bliss that is healing and resourceful. What that bliss is for you specifically is your choice. And I think that's important. You talk about how you've helped professionals and professional athletes. And I've read, I had mentioned before you came on, I have read Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell. I can't think of his last name right now, but it talked about how you're able to visualize the game. And so I asked, when you were helping certain professionals, were you helping them meditate into what they're trying to do? Is that something that you may help somebody with?
Absolutely. I mean, a little secret, this book was the technique from this book. I had actually honed it down to a minute. And some of the actors and athletes that I work with have it down to less than a minute, because they've just gotten so good at it. Like they just do it like it's instant now. Like they've trained themselves so well that they go into it so fast. But I actually developed this technique because golfers a while back used to take beta blockers so that they could stay in a state of trance and retain their focus throughout the golf game. And when the drugs were banned for anyone who didn't have heart problems, they all had focus issues, and they needed to be able to get into the zone in an instant right before they took their, went up to tee. And this was a technique that I developed for them. And I was like, well, how do I pare it down? How do I make it more efficient? How do I get them into that space? And it doesn't create a cessation of thoughts. Thoughts are still going to come up. And the one thing that I do tell people is that awareness doesn't mean you're without thought.
Right.
Meditating for awareness, not to be unaware. Right.
Wow. That is amazing. And I like when you put in here, over the years, I've heard all kinds of rationalizations as to why you personally will not be able to meditate. And I like the fact that you use rationalizations instead of excuses. But I've seen that in here. There is literally a list, and I've heard them. It's too hard. Work is too chaotic. I have a short attention span. I mean, you've heard these from your clients, I'm sure. And I've even used some of these in the beginning. I have kids. I can't sit comfortably on the floor. I want to touch that for a minute. So I've heard don't lay in your bed and meditate. I've heard don't lay down. I've heard lay down. I think I've done them all. I've heard sit, but you actually give a right and wrong position as far as the back and slow. And I will say I was guilty of slouching for a while. So can you give some tips on maybe that?
Okay. So one, you don't have to sit on the floor. I think it's really important to be comfortable. I don't think I say it in the book, but one of the things that I try to explain to people is that your brain doesn't just stay here. Your brain finishes in your hands and your feet. It's your entire nervous system. And so when you sit on the floor and you go numb, there are parts as I've gotten older that I didn't know could go numb that go numb. So, it's just like that way. But if you're cutting off parts of your brain, you're not listening properly. Like this is a process of listening to every part of yourself. With intelligence that a child on a playground knows that when they jump off of something, they're going to land because they have intelligence from their head to their feet. Right? Every part of them is alive, awake, in sync with each other. And that's kind of what we're doing here. Now, I do mention the sitting upright just because it's fatiguing when your body slumps.
Yes.
You don't get as much oxygen in. You're not going to get as much out of it in that way. And when you're sitting up and your head, like whether it tilts a little bit this way or that way isn't such a big deal. But when you're sitting up, you're going to get way more oxygen. And the more oxygen in, the more restoration you're going to have, the more energized you're going to be. Believe it or not, sometimes when you're taking deep relaxation breathing, it's not big breaths, but soft, deep breaths that are actually really low in your lungs, right by your diaphragm. And they don't have to be big, but right at the bottom of your lungs, which is where all the oxygen conversion happens, that's the best. And so if you're slumped over, it's not going to work for you. The only reason you don't meditate lying down in bed is because your body, when it goes into a state of trance, mimics sleep. Same brainwave levels. Like there's a sentence that a term or a coin of phrase that we say in neuroscience: the neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're laying down, that's what your body does when it sleeps. If you're going into a deep state of trance, that's where your brainwaves go when you sleep. And so if you are going into those deeper brainwave levels and lying down, you're probably just going to go to sleep and not get meditation. But if you're using meditation to help you sleep, then of course lie down.
Right. That's a good point.
Right. Yeah. So there's kind of exceptions to every rule. And I think it's important to figure out what you're looking to get out of it. And once you know what you're looking to get out of it, you kind of have to then detach from what you're looking to get out of it.
Right. And that is so true. Yeah, the laying down is really true. I know it's helped some of my clients sleep, and that's good. And I love Joe Dispenza. I follow him heavily. And so, yeah, that brings us to presenting your best self. And I looked at it as like segments of intending, right? It's like you wrote on page 37, I take my minute before every talk, every meeting, and every client. I take my minute so that I am always presenting my best self. I take it so I am in the best possible state to deliver on what I set out for myself and those I work with. I take several minutes afterwards or longer to allow myself to process those things that are going on in my life and get back to me. You guys, remember page 37 when you get the book. You need that because this is like such a big life key. Like this is huge. Before a phone call or when the phone rings, this is big. So I appreciate you putting this in here. And so is this this is not just pre-meditation, right? This is like before you do anything, or is this just
anything of significance? Like I do it. So I have, I even do it for myself when I'm going to do my nightly journaling.
Okay.
And I have like a nightly journaling process where it's just 3 questions really that I answer. What challenged me? What did I learn? What am I grateful for? Every night I do those 3 things and I just kind of jot them down point form. It doesn't have to be fancy, but I always go through those 3 things. But before I do that, I even take my minute in that moment and I just come back and I'm like, here's me. And if I could even modify, it's not even my best self because it's my true self. It's my true self. Best self is kind of a cultivation process, I think. And you have to cultivate beliefs, values, practices, habits. But I find that the more I meditate, the more I'm kind of pruning things away and releasing a lot of things that I didn't choose for myself, right? Beliefs of society, beliefs of family, culture, things like that, beliefs of maybe a teacher who said you're a bad student.
Right.
You don't do this, you don't apply your, things like that.
Right.
And those aren't part of who I am. Those aren't part of my true self. Maybe something like you don't apply yourself enough could be one of those things that triggers a person to try harder and try harder. And this person accomplishes extraordinary things. That doesn't necessarily mean that's your true self or best self. Right. But there's a space when the part of you that you cultivate is the part of you that is, and they're now in alignment. And I think that is, as much as meditation can seem like a superfluous kind of off in the clouds sort of thing. I think it is, if you are willing to use it tangibly, and that's what I try to do with this book, was try to make it something that you pull into your daily life, that becomes relevant to you today, not something where you just wander off and it's a beautiful journey over there, but something that we use, something that we utilize, something that makes us better in this life, in this existence, when we're conscious and we're present, when you and I are finally getting to talk to each other.
Yes. Right now. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important too. Before I was where I am, I don't know that I was ever present in my life. And I know that it's very common for people. Your what you forgot yesterday, your what you need to remember for tomorrow, your what am I going to cook for dinner, you're really everywhere. But when you start to really understand what the present moment is, it's somewhere you really like to be, because you're that's what's real. It's the right now. So when you have that opportunity to be there or recognize, I need to come back. I always tell myself that, like, okay, come back, and then so you get that moment. So it's a gift that we can all have. It's there within us. And if we get tools like this, and you talk about the breathing, I know I'm going back a little bit, but that was such a great way to put it. And I loved it how you put in the back in the book about when you take a deep breath in, it's not just you're not trying to take in this big balloon, as much as you're trying to get it nice and deep and low and really down into the bottom of your lung. And so that was important, because I don't know that I had ever heard it explained that way, but that made so much sense. And when I was actually taking my breaths in, I felt it in a different way. So I was very thankful for that understanding too. So you did a great job with this. I mean, not just this, but I've got to experience this. So page 47, you say, whether you are old or young, whether you feel old or young, whether it is an easy habit or a more challenging one, the more often you practice it, the easier it will get. And I remind people of this because a lot of times we'll put something new in our life, like meditation. If we haven't been prone to using it or introduced to using it, we'll put it on the back burner and say, well, my day just got too busy. Like all those I call them excuses, but you call them something better. In the book, we do that. We tend to push it off because we don't understand how beautiful it is and what it really does for us. And so I wonder, like, if you could put one sentence that says why meditation is so important, could you sum that up, or is that even possible? Like, if somebody were to say, why, Farzana? Why would I do this? What would we say?
It's the space where you remember who you are.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that, but I wonder, like, I guess people are just ready for it when they're ready for it. I mean, I don't know.
I think 1,000%.
Yeah.
When you're ready for it. But I think there has to be some kind of openness, because, I've had conversations with people who are skeptics, who want to prove you wrong, who want to say, who are stuck, who, no matter how much I teach them, no matter how much I share with them, they still insist on thinking that it must be that they clear their mind.
Okay. I could see that.
They have to clear their mind. It has to be a discipline. It has to be, a certain way. And if you notice, I don't talk about that too much in this book.
Mm-mm.
I talk about the process.
Yeah. The Play-Doh and or the Mind-O. Mm-hmm.
I talk about showing up for the practice, but I don't talk about what happens in your mind.
Right.
Because it's irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant, but it's also irrelevant.
Yeah.
You're going to have thoughts. You're going to have beliefs. You're going to have thoughts that are noticed. Like, all beliefs are composed of thoughts, right?
Right.
All things that you notice are have like elements of thought to them.
Mm-hmm.
But, in that spectrum of beliefs, core values, like things that get closer and closer to touching the part of you that is your consciousness or your identity or your soul or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You get your core values right up close against that part of you that's you, and then beliefs, and then there's some thoughts and ideas and just things that you notice in the periphery. Like, but where are you?
Right.
In that, right? This is that process of it. And I just feel like you can't, sometimes you've got so many core values and beliefs that you didn't choose that are blocking this from shining, blocking this from coming through. And sometimes it takes a really traumatic event in someone's life, or something horrible, or for everything to fall apart, or I don't know, maybe a global pandemic.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
Something like that, where like en masse last year, everyone in the world was like, who am I without my routine? Who am I without the clothes that I wear to work? Who am I without my little run to the barista every day? Or, who am I without the little mini conversations, these little micro conversations and interactions I have with people every day? Who am I? And, everybody was kind of falling apart last year. And I feel like the world was forced into this process that's called a vipassana, where you just go and you meditate 11 hours a day for 11 days. Mm-hmm. And you don't talk, you just sit for 11 days, 11 hours a day. And I feel like the world was kind of forced into that. They didn't choose it either. And it was very uncomfortable, and not everybody had the coping mechanisms or the tools to deal with it. But I feel like sometimes it takes one of those moments, like these kinds of experiences, people to say, I'm ready to listen now. For people to say, I'm ready to embark on this journey, because we aren't always.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. I know for me, it was a huge life-changing event, and I just felt like there had to be more. I feel like there just had to be more, that this life I had learned, and this life that I had experienced, and all the traumatic things I had experienced, and then for it to happen to me again at an adult age, I knew there had to be more to life. I knew that there was a reason we were here, and maybe I just, as much as I thought I was living it, maybe I wasn't. And so you're right. I think it takes people to come to a huge halt in their life. And obviously, like you said, pandemics, like that's a lot of halts for a lot of people, and a lot of people's identity were wrapped up in what they were doing. And then once that's removed, there's almost like a loss. It's like a loss.
And I think, now more time than ever, and I don't mean to get political when I say this, so take it the right way.
Right.
But you're not your political affiliation. You are not your vaccinated, unvaccinated. You are not, like, these are all constructs of society, and who you are, like, transcends all of those things.
Yes. Yes. And I will tell you that I tell people when I tell my story, I almost felt bad telling my story, because I'm like, I don't want to sell you my sad story. I want to give you the inside to my freedom, because it wasn't until I found myself in the core of who I am that I've ever felt truly free. So I had a hard time for a while telling the sad parts, because I don't belong to those parts no more. Those were an experience. So I had to go through transition where, Amy, you're telling your story because you're helping others to see your freedom, but not see your pain, because I didn't want to get people hung up on what has happened to me as much as what has happened through me, and how I am me now, and how freeing that is. So when I tell people, I do this because I got to meet myself for the first time, and that was life-changing. So that's why I encourage people, when you feel like you're there, there's so much more to you. There's so much more to you.
And there are layers, like, I still go through things. I still have things that I break through, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought that about myself, or I can't believe that this was something that I was holding. I still have those, and it's just like, and I do this. I've been doing this every day for 38 years. Like, I've been doing this pretty much my whole life. There's not a lot of time where I haven't done this every day.
I know when I seen you did it for so long, I was like, well, she's only like, I don't know, she only looks like max like this age or that age. So when I seen 37 years, I was like, what? But you're beautiful, and it shows. So but you're right. So a lot of people, this is what I tell my clients as well. I'm like, I don't want you to think that I don't have hard days. I don't want you to think that I don't have to work and process myself through my own things. I do, but there's somewhere to go now. There's a process to use now. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by it, you have somewhere that is a place for you to go. And before, you're just like, you figure it out however, but I know now that there's nothing that is going to come that I'm not okay with myself and facing. So that's different than before, where everything was stronger than I guess, my ability to go inside. Now going inside is where my strength is. So it did a flip for me, once I realized, hey, I could do that. So,
and I will say, I've had times in my life where it was easier to go inside, and then there was stuff that I didn't want to acknowledge. Like, I went through some horrible things, and there was stuff that I didn't want to acknowledge. Or there are times in our lives when the pain is too much.
mm-hmm.
Pain is too much, and our bodies are intelligent, so they store pain for us to deal with later.
Oh, yes.
And you think you're doing the work, but it's still there because you haven't gotten to all the layers of it. And and even through that, there are times when I've had difficulty in meditation where I felt itchy the entire time. I didn't want to do it, where I hated doing it, but I'd made that commitment to myself that this is what I do. And I like, there have been times where I've had weeks where every day for weeks, I just felt frustrated every single day, where I sat through my meditation, and it was necessary to go through that, to actually process and release it.
Wow. That is important for people to hear. That is so important.
And I just really don't want people to think that it always is this blissful experience, because the first time I think you listen to the recording and you're guided, it can be very blissful and it can feel really nice. And then you go out on your own and you're like, it wasn't like this when I did it on my own. And it's like, it's one thing to have a focus and someone guide you for a few minutes. And I do like to take people to the place where I like to go.
Mm-hmm.
I do know a place that I like to go. But you know what? That place is just is there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like to demonstrate that for people when I guide them. However, you're going to have your own place, and what that place looks like for you, for each and every person who's listening to this, who experiences it, it's different. But the thing is when you go to your place where you listen to yourself,
right,
part of listening to yourself is listening to your body getting mad at you, listening to your inner child. Like, there is a part of you in conversation with yourself, and there's like the core of yourself, the part that I call your true self. That part has to listen to the part that lives in this world, and the part that lives in this world is kind of like a child.
Right.
This part is the parent. If you're going to be a really loving parent, you're not going to keep ignoring your child and say, not now, not now. Just be quiet. Children are to be seen and not heard from.
Right.
Grew up with that one. But you're going to now listen to the child, and you're going to say, okay, that's okay. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about, I'm listening. And you'll talk it through with them. And there's a huge part of the process of meditation, which is listening to that conversation happen lovingly and honoring yourself.
Yeah, that's very true. And in this book, you do go into some neuroscience, you go into some stuff, but I have never seen such an easy explanation of beta, alpha, theta, and delta. I thought that was so awesome. And so the whole be at the door. And then you talk about the for those of you who are unfamiliar with the brain waves, it gives you a example about what happens in each one, like when you're in beta, alpha, theta, and delta, what it's like. And it's a very pint-sized explanation so that it's easily understood. And I don't know, I'd be able to remember the acronym forever. So I appreciate that. That was really good. And I didn't go too much into that because I really wanted the audience to be able to see meditation in this way, in a lighter way, for those who maybe haven't heard of it, maybe they're still afraid of it, or maybe they're starting to see it pop up more now, being as that people are becoming more and more aware. And I just think that this is so important that you explained it, but you explained it in a way that was, to me, like pint-sized. So it's not too much, but that for those who need the fact check behind it or want to know the details behind it, you provided it. So that was very important. So you talk about on page 61, if we don't get enough sleep or sleeping poorly, then the filter cannot clear itself out. It's similar to your computer defragmenting. We usually clear the filter and defrag the mind during REM sleep and meditative stress. This is important because I did like a sleep study thing with my boot camp, and well, not study with them, but I did the study and then I showed them the results about how important sleep really is, because you hear a lot of people who say, oh, well, all we need is like 2 hours sleep. If I can have 2 or 3 hours sleep. And especially in the entrepreneur field, everybody's like, you got to grind and you got to work, and who needs sleep? We don't eat. We just go, go, go. And I'm sitting here, I'm looking at these people like,
it's exhausting.
I need sleep. Yeah. So this was good. So you want to give on the young and open and firewalled, we kind of touched a little bit on that, but do you want to give just a small detail on why, if you were to put it into a nutshell, why sleep is so important?
Sleep is really important because there are certain cycles that you go through in sleep. Some of them regenerate your physical body. Some of them regrow the cortex of your brain. And possibly one of the most important are your REM cycles of sleep. In your REM cycles of sleep, your dreams are actually sorting out all of the things that you experience in your day. And basically, your prefrontal cortex is designed to hold like 7 plus or minus 2 things. Okay? Mm-hmm. That means that you can kind of keep several things on your like mental to-do list for the day. But if you don't sleep properly, that part of your brain becomes cluttered because it keeps trying to hold more and more and more stuff. And so it's through your dreams that you actually organize what's going on in your mind. It's where if you watch a scary movie, you have a nightmare about the movie, the nightmare vents out that scary stuff. If you have some conflicts or challenges with people, with situations, with things that you're working on, this is actually where your mind can get a little creative and can do some problem solving for you. But also it just helps you declutter and clear out the mess so that the next day, this part of your brain that holds 7 plus or minus 2 things can actually hold those things. So the first thing that happens when you don't get a full sleep cycle is you start to not be able, you're a bit foggy, you can't think clearly, you start forgetting things, you can't remember things as readily. People's names or the names of like things don't come to your mind. You're like, oh, what's the name? What's the name? What's the name? And it's like it's right there, but you can't access it because you didn't sleep. And so it is so important in terms of how your clarity goes to get that sleep. I mean, your endocrine system, your adrenals, your hormones, everything. There's so many different things. I mean, you want to have a slimmer midsection, get more sleep. Seriously, if you can get a minimum 7 hours of sleep, your midsection is going to shrink down. Every time I go on vacation and I eat all this vacation food, everyone's all like, how come you look trimmer? You've been eating horrible food. And I'm like, I'm just sleeping more. It's literally just the sleep.
Yeah, no, sleep is so important because I think I did read somewhere where it suggests that we as adults after a certain age have between 7 and 9 hours. And I think people, they get stressed out and they sleep less. And a lot of people that I know, they're like, oh yeah, as long as I get 5 hours, and I need my 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah. I am writing a book called I Cheat at Sleep.
I mentioned that. Yeah.
It's been a challenging one to write just because more and more information comes up. But I think I'm going to do what I did with this book and just stick to the technique and not the information that we have.
Yeah.
Because I think people really need that one right now.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we're spending time on screens, and I think in the last year, I think there was some statistic from Apple that came up where they track your screen usage time, and they said that people are using, like, in some cases, like 13 hours of screen time a day, and that's not including what they watch on television.
Yeah. And they also talk about, I guess there's the blue that's in the screen that actually keeps us from sleeping and this and that. I personally, mine goes off. And then at a certain time, I don't watch TV. Yeah, I really don't watch TV. Okay. I do watch a little Netflix, and I am a Cowboys fan. So if the Cowboys play every now and then, but I really don't know when people talk about programs, I'm lost because I don't know, but I will notice if I've spent a little more time on maybe scrolling through something, because after being away from it for so long, it starts to give me a feeling of anxiety almost. Like if I get too much intake of social media or whatever, because I'm not around it a lot, I get this weird feeling, almost like, okay, why do I feel sick? It's because I've taken in too much, stuff. So, yeah. Now, I did notice it said also, the one that says also by you, you have written 20 Beautiful Women, Volume 2. Was this a collective? Can you tell us a little bit about that? That way we're aware of this one too.
Yes, I was invited to be part of this book of extraordinary women who've been through like a lot of hardship, a lot of challenges, leaders, coaches, authors, business people, some really interesting women. I think they have many volumes now, and they did 20 Beautiful Men as well.
Mm-hmm.
They actually did a men's book as well. Those stories, like from some of the other authors, from some of the women in there, were pretty extraordinary. It puts a lot of things in perspective. I will say the pain you are in, the challenges that you face, they are your pain. Sometimes, and I don't think it's healthy to look at someone else's pain and journey and say, well, I'm not allowed to feel my pain because theirs is much worse.
Right.
We're all I believe that we're all in a position to handle whatever we have.
Right.
Even if it means being overwhelmed, having a meltdown, and saying, okay, let's start now, one step at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time.
Right.
I do think that it's nice to have perspective, and it's nice to remember that you are not alone. Yeah. That other people have stuff going on too. Not that yours is invalidated because theirs is bad, because yours is also like that. There are other people going through stuff too, that you're not alone in this world. And the inspiration and the learnings and the wisdom, like what you were saying, you are not the thing that you went through. You are not those experiences. You are who you are today. And I think there's something to be said, and I really admire that in you, that you don't have to carry baggage. You don't have to wear it. And I think it was one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten when someone said to me, oh, you look like you were born with a golden spoon in your mouth. And I thought, well, one, it's a silver spoon. So what's the term, a silver spoon? But I was like, but I thought about it and I wasn't offended. I was like, thank you.
Right.
Because that means that I don't wear my scars. That means I've done the work. It means I've done the learning. It means that I've actually grown. And that's what that book is about.
I'm going to have to look at that one because I think I'll be very interested in it. And it is, yes, you mentioned that about the golden spoon. So when I was speaking with Les Brown and I was doing my one-on-one with him and we were talking about my story, and he said, Amy, I would have never guessed. He said, looking at you, I would have never guessed. And I said, and I too said, that's probably one of the greatest compliments I could ever receive, is that you don't see my past. You see me for who I am and my future, but you don't see, where I came from.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I've been reluctant to talk about some of the things in my past because I feel like as a woman, and as someone who is a motivational speaker, I have so much more to say. And I feel like if I tell some of those things, that's the only thing people want to talk about. That's the thing that people remember, not all of the other stuff that I have to say. And I'm curious how you feel about that.
So that was
off topic of it.
No. This is about me and you. This is whatever we do. This is the show. So when I first started, one of the reasons I chose Les Brown for my mentor was his voice pulled me out of a very dark place, and I really feel like I attracted him into my life because I kept thinking about him, and I said one day I want to meet him. Little did I know I would end up being one of his Power Voice speakers, and that I would be mentored by him and see him on 3 different situations. I mean, it was just like wow, but it made me nervous when he was telling me about my story to not go so deep. He like just get a surface story, something that happened, because you'll leave your audience down there and I get what he's saying because of the abuse that I had went through and different stuff. I guess I'll find different platforms to talk about maybe those situations, but I too am learning what parts do I want to tell. My thing is I just want to tell what unlocked me, what the process was that I went through, and to go forward. But you're right. There's times I hesitate to tell somebody what I've been through, because I don't want them to either see me in a different light or kind of feel sorry for me instead of see the person that I am now or look at me differently. But I think to me, it's me and my own judgments. And then I think that I'll know what I need to say when I need to say it because I trust myself. I hope that even answered remotely close to what you'd asked me. But yeah, so it's been interesting. I've been, developed to try to say my story in some way. But in writing this, I have a piece that I wrote with Tony Robbins' endorsed book, and it's Cracking the Rich Code. It's a little bit different, but it does go into how to treat people, and how I felt that was the biggest part to my success is once I got one with myself and I was, running big companies and I had a lot of people. Then the next book that will be coming out in December was a co-authorship also, and it was raising, I forget what it was, but it's coming out. Sorry. But the third book that's coming out is me actually writing a part of my story. And it was very hard because I didn't know where to go. Because telling somebody, I don't think everybody needs to know everything, but I do think there are certain groups that they need to hear everything. So I feel like we may be split as people who have went through a lot, that there'll be callings for that side of us, and there'll also be callings for the new side of us. And so I don't know. So I'm just now kind of coming up against that right now. And I just feel like whatever I feel led to share, I feel led to share. But I will tell you this, I'll be very open and transparent with you. The people who I thought would be closest to me through my growth are the farthest from me. And my closest people are people like yourself or people that I've met on the walk who I truly feel close to their spirit. And so it's a different life now. It's a different life. And so sometimes I miss the part of me that almost didn't know as much as I know now. But then when you know what you know, you don't go back. And then so it's different. There's like, I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I feel that way. I feel that way about dating and relationships too. Just to, take it to a level. Like, I mean, I 100% feel you where you are there. But I feel like sometimes it would be nice to know less. It would be nice to see less. People, I get asked often, why are you single? And it's like, recently I've been getting it a lot where people are like, well, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And in just in a really loving way. Because I'd gone for a walk with a man earlier this year, and he's like, what's wrong with you? How come you never married? How come you never did anything? And I said, you have children with 3 different women.
Mm-hmm.
That you've been married 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
I said, nobody would ever ask you what's wrong with you.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, wow, you have 3 children. They would kind of reward you. If you were, got married later in life, they would reward you for that too.
Right.
Except I think when you're a woman, it's the other question. And I would say, I actually think that because of some of the things that I went through in my past, I am attracted to, or I would attract a certain type of partner.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have done enough work that I can see that person. I can spot the bad fit. I can spot the bad match. I can spot the characteristics that are not healthy for me. And maybe it's a testament to the work that I've done and my knowledge and my intelligence that I have not gotten into a relationship and stayed in a relationship that is an unhealthy, that is a codependent, that is an abusive one,
Mm-hmm.
or that is leading to that I can spot that. And what I can say is that I am open. I don't harbor any negativity towards men because as you mentioned, I had good papas.
Yeah.
And both of them were feminists who said I could do anything,
Right.
Both of them said even things like silly things like, believing in me that I would be a good driver, like just even the little things like that make a difference. But I remember I was in a relationship that I was engaged and I broke it off, and everyone in the family was so upset, and I got a lot of comments from people, and my dad was the one who said, you know what? And my grandfather, they both did. They both said to me, they said, my father said, I'm really proud of you that you didn't stay in this.
Mm-hmm.
This person was not treating you well, and I'm really proud of you for leaving. A lot of people, it looked good on the surface, and a lot of people would have thought that you should stay. And my grandfather also said something along the same lines. And he said, first of all, I will stand by you and I will tell your mom that you don't need a man to get pregnant and have a child. If you want to have a child, you can have a child without one. And I will tell her. And in our culture, that's not really the
Right.
And he also said the work that you do is really important. And he said, I'm concerned because I noticed that in your generation, a lot of young men are very selfish.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and again, not saying everyone is, but this was my grandfather's take.
Right.
And he said, the work you do is really important. And he said, I think it's going to be maybe challenging for you to find someone who can understand what you do and be there and support you in what you do. And that's okay. And just remember, you don't need a man to have a child.
Yeah, I can relate to all that. So for me, you talked about, different relationships at different times. Being as that I came from a broken situation from the beginning, 4-pound baby, drug using mother, in and out foster care, abused in every sense of the word. Then I had 3 kids and I had, failed marriage. And then I had, and then somewhere along the line, midlife, I find myself and then I go, aha. So those didn't work because, and now I realize who I am. And then you wonder, like, because you've got here with yourself, can somebody pour into me and not take from me, but also understand me, who I am in myself? And I was listening to one of my favorite people who's no longer on this earth is Miles Monroe. And he was talking about the woman and the wife and the husband and the man. And I don't know that I've ever been taught what a man should be, as far as like who he should be as a husband and who I should be as a wife. Not in like, make my dinner, but I'm talking about in like a spiritual sense of someone you can look up to. So who is, and I'm not saying I'm the highest of the high when it comes to where I'm at mentally, but what I'm saying is you realize just how valuable you are. Just how valuable you are. And you go, just not willing to just give that away somewhere because it seems right, or I think, or whatever. You start to say, who I am is so beautiful that I just want to keep it living. And if that means what looks like being quote unquote alone or single or whatever, I'm actually glad my life went the way it did, because having kids, I don't know that I have kids now. I love my kids and I'm glad I had them young, but that was a different me. This me now, I would, I don't know, because of the part, like you said, it would take a partner. It would take, or, it could, I mean, there's more ways, but to find somebody now and who I am is definitely a lot more difficult than it was when I was in my 20s or when I was in my teens or in my 30s. This is a whole different thing. So I get it.
Yeah. And it's not a complaint. It's just an awareness.
That
I'm not even, I just think that, I'm glad for that intelligence. I'm glad that I can, on a first meeting, see these signs.
Yeah.
Signs of narcissism, signs of things like that, and just like, okay, this is not going to be a balanced relationship.
Right. No, I think it's a gift. I really do. I think that it's a gift because you're able to. I appreciate it. I really do. At first, I think I was a little confused by it because I was like, okay, wait a minute. Am I being to this or to that? Because you start to question yourself,
Am I too picky? Oh, and I've had people tell me those things. In fact, I've been in relationships where I've stayed for a year because people are like, no, you're too picky. And I'm like, no. And then, as time went on, that person exhibited the behavior and they're like, well, gee, one of your friends that said you shouldn't. And they're like, well, you shouldn't stay in that. And I'm like,
Right. So you've been so gracious with your time. And I also want to say that I appreciate your mother's work as well. Like I was
extraordinary.
Are you willing to share who your mother is and what she does and what she stands for?
Absolutely. In fact, normally I talk about my mom a lot. And today I talked about my dad. He'll be so happy. He's like, you never talk about my mom is pretty extraordinary. She has fought for human rights my entire life. She is currently a federal Canadian senator. She's been a senator for 20 years now,
right?
Which is pretty cool. And she, even long before that, she has been in service to women, our country, just fighting for you know, in Canada, we have a year of maternity leave.
Wow.
And fathers can get maternity leave too.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not the case in America, as far as I know. And I think it varies from state to state a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. But federally across the country, we have things like that. And there's so many things. Like my mom helped refugees. My mom fought for the rights of battered women, minority groups,
Mm-hmm.
sorts of things. And growing up with that, she's pretty, I mean, as a child, of course, you don't see it in the same way. And
Right.
you're like, "Ugh, it's mom doing one of her things again." The
Yeah.
older I get and the more that I do my own business, the more I understand her. The more I'm like, wow, okay, this is what it took for her to do these things. This is what this is who she had to be. And it's pretty cool. I mean, I see more and more of my mother and myself every day. And sometimes it's moments like, oh, am I okay with that? But most of the time it's like, I don't think that I wouldn't be on this path where I am today if it wasn't for her. She was the one who tricked me into going to a Tony Robbins seminar. And,
Really?
oh yeah. Okay. In the 90s, I was really bullied, and when my mom finally found out, because I hid it, I didn't want anyone to
Right.
know. I was embarrassed and ashamed. And when she found out, she was like, "Okay, we're gonna take her to this Tony Robbins event." And I hated him so much. I hated the sound of his voice because when I was little, she would play his videotapes or listen to his cassettes, and she would go on a rampage. She would like dump my closet out. She'd make me reorganize everything. I would get in trouble for school for not applying myself, or like I'd be grounded for like 3 months after she'd go on one of her Tony Robbins kicks. And so the sound of his voice, I hated it. Like, I was like, who is this big phony guy with teeth? And,
Mm-hmm.
And so she tricked me into going to one of his seminars by going to Hawaii. And she's such an extraordinary woman. Every holiday we ever went on was somehow educational.
Mm-hmm.
She sent me to like places where I would do volunteer work, or other countries where I would learn languages, like really cool things. Now, but as a child, you just want to go to Disneyland and Hawaii.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So when we went to Hawaii, I was like, wow, this is incredible. But it wound up being a 2-week long life mastery in Kona, Hawaii. And it was such an extraordinary experience. It's a longer story. I'll save it for another time. But I knew that I was home. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I didn't even know that being a life coach could be a career, because there was no education for it.
Right.
I knew that when I was there that I was home. Like, I always knew that I was going into some form of psychology. But yeah, I remember when I first walked around and I thought she was going to some sort of seminar. I didn't know we were going to a seminar.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember rounding the corner and seeing giant posters of Tony's face. And like, in the movies, the music is like, wah, wah. And, I was like, and she like hands me this like 30, like thick document. She's like, you have to fill this out. And I'm like, oh no. And I think I found out how much it cost. And I was just like, you paid how much money to have this lunatic talk at us for 2 weeks?
Right.
I'm like, you have all his books. Have they helped you? No. And she just, and I kind of gave my mom a lecture. I'd never spoken back to my mom in my life. And she just sat there, chin up, and she's like, And it was incredible. It was everything that I had always believed about emotions, about psychology. But here's this person putting it into a structure. And I was like, oh, whenever I resolve my issues, whenever I do my things, that's actually the process that I go through. But now I have it labeled in steps. And it was just so great. And I started supporting people that around me, and I would see someone having a challenge. And Tony, and do you know Joseph McClendon? He's really good. He's really close with Les.
Yeah, I know the name. I haven't been able to, there was never no official meeting, but yeah, I'm aware.
Okay. Tony and Joseph kind of had singled me out, and Joseph pulled me aside. He's like, we've been watching you, and we'd like to train you. And that was the beginning of everything.
Wow.
At least this coaching side of things and motivational speaking.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's kind of how it happened. I wanted it. It called me. I realized I had been doing it my whole life. When I would run these companies, every morning I would have, 150 staff members when I was running companies in San Diego, California. I'd have them all meet in the morning and I would read from Napoleon Hill and we do like a pump up type thing. So I never really realized I have always been speaking to people, but I wasn't in the position with myself to where I am now. So it's interesting how life has this wave and it kind of introduces you to what you should do or maybe to yourself to some degree along your life. And then when you finally start to get on the stage of your own life of where you should be, you go, wow, well, I've been doing increments of this kind of my whole life. So then when Les Brown came up and then I was mentored by him and then the Tony Robbins team had came about this book and then I would have never. And I was the same way about Tony because I used to do sales with WFG, which is an insurance company years ago. And that he came and he spoke and I kept thinking, gosh, he's so raw and so big. And then just, to be closer to these people is just, it's interesting. So, wow, I didn't know. I'm like speechless to hear the story because I didn't know about that. So, wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was actually the first time in my life someone recognized me for the gifts that I felt I valued.
Wow. That is. And I think that is so important for people to hear is that it will happen if you allow it. It really, I know we try to argue with it sometimes, because I've been a nurse for 10 years. And then before that, I was into sales. And so to do this, some people are going, wow, so you're going to give up nursing? Like you're going to give up nursing? I'll always be a nurse to some degree, just in a different capacity. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting. So what I do see coming soon, I cheat at sleep, I cheat at confidence, which I love. I cheat at happiness and I cheat at life. I'm excited to see all of these. I will be making sure they're on a quick order for me because I appreciate them. So do you have any final words or maybe you can, if people want to take a course from you, tell them where to go. What else would you like to say?
So I am going to be doing very soon. I'm going to be doing a 7-day course, which will be every evening for 7 nights. And it will be for sleep specifically.
Wow.
So it'll be meditation and sleep.
Okay.
I did one that was a 7-day one to regrow your brain. You will still regrow your brain from this, but it was in the mornings. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people really wanted a sleep one as well. So I'm doing a sleep one. It's going to be a really low buy-in because it'll be only I believe $50.
Oh, wow.
I really wanted to make it accessible to people.
Right.
So that is coming up. And if you go to, I don't know if they have the site, but if it's easy from my website, if you just sign up for a newsletter, you will receive the information for that.
What is the address so I can scroll it on the bottom? What is the website?
FarzanaJJ.com.
It's WW, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I will definitely be there for that.
It's with a Z instead of it. Farzana. Sorry.
What did I do? Hold on. Sometimes I'm not gonna say that, but with Apple they like to spell for you.
Oh yeah, they probably autocorrected.
FAR. I gave you a J instead of a Z or something.
Yeah, FarzanaJJ.com. Yeah, I've been really. I actually had a program that was $5,000, which is still a steal, which was going to be a 6-month complete overhaul of your life, literally every belief system, everything, your communication, how you communicate with yourself, meditation, mm-hmm. Trauma release work, like all kinds of things, like grief processing, mm-hmm. everything. And it was going to be a 6-month program. But given that we keep going into lockdowns, people are feeling financially scarce. I've just wanted to make it accessible to people. So I've actually broken it into smaller modules and chunks, and I'm going to do smaller offerings that are a little more affordable for people, because I think right now, one of the biggest things that I've seen people say is that they need access to this, but they just can't do it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have a 6-month program as well, but I also did a boot camp because of that. So I basically condensed certain fragments and put it down into, we would meet twice a week. So I
Yeah.
think that's really beneficial. So I'm thankful for it. Thank you for doing that. And
Yeah, I'm going to take your boot camp.
yeah, the boot camp is fun. But so I just finished the first course with that. But it's interesting how those of us who are wanting to pour out into people, we're having to be creative as well. For me, to be honest, once we went all video, it was really interesting because I didn't like to see myself. As crazy as that sounds, there'd be times I'd cover on a Zoom, I'd cover my face so that I could see everybody else in there because it's just different. I'm tired.
I totally did that. I actually blew up the screen and I might put myself out to the side so I can only see you.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it's interesting, when you're on a stage, you don't see yourself, and sometimes the speakers are out. So you don't even, speaking of which, loved your TED Talk too. But yeah, the speakers were out this way, that way, you can't really hear. So you've been amazing. I'm so thankful that you're here and so honored that you said yes to do this interview. I know that it's not a matter of people not wanting to do interviews sometimes as much as they do have a schedule that keeps going. And sometimes it gets bigger than they want. And so I am glad that you had the opportunity and the desire to be here because I truly appreciate your presence. It's amazing, even just following you on your social media and then reading your book. It's just and doing the meditation. It's a gift. And so any final words before I put you backstage and I close?
I just wanted to say thank you. And it's an honor to meet you finally too. Obviously we've been following each other for a long time and I'm just so grateful that it's happened now. So thank you so much for having me. And I would just say to everybody, there's nothing wrong with your emotions. There's nothing wrong with your thoughts when you go into a meditation process. There is nothing like the first and can I leave people with my 5 laws of meditation?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You're really fast. The first and most important law of meditation is you are always doing it right. You cannot get it wrong, no matter what happens. Itchy, distracted, mental looping, crying, falling asleep. It's okay. You showed up. Do it again. Just keep showing up for it. You're always doing it right. It's a process. It's a journey. It's a learning. It's a practice. A practice isn't something that you learn and accomplish. It's something that you do every day, like brushing your teeth. Okay. Law number 2, thoughts are not the enemy. Your body and brain were built to have thoughts. Okay. Acknowledge them. Okay. Rule number 3, emotions are not fluffy things. They are neurochemicals. They exist in your body. The more you push them away, the more they will push back. Same with your thoughts. If you let them happen, and if you notice yourself having that experience, if you don't get angry with yourself for having certain thoughts and emotions, then they can just be like clouds that pass by in the sky, right? You're not going to get angry at a cloud for being fluffy or get angry at a cloud for being hazy. You're just going to notice them, right? Or you might notice that a really stormy cloud makes you feel a bit afraid, and maybe you notice that you're having a fear response. Mm-hmm. Right? Just emotions are not fluffy things, so don't treat them like they're wrong. Don't treat them like they're insignificant. Do not invalidate your own emotions inside your own head. Rule number 4, be physically comfortable. Mm-hmm. Okay? Don't let things go numb. And law number 5, you're always doing it right. I know it's the same as number 1, but I think it's important. So I think that's what I would leave anyone with. So even if you don't do what's in my book, even if I just left you with those 5 things and you just sat on your own and just sat to listen to yourself, your thoughts, the environment, whatever it is, that I would leave you with those things.
Wow. Thank you for that gift. So you guys make sure you catch us on replay. Make sure that you share this with whoever may need it, or if you just need to hear it again, it's here. So Farzana, I'm going to take you backstage. Don't leave me though. I want to say goodbye properly, and I'm going to say goodbye to the audience, and I will thank you again. Well, everybody, such a gift. I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And as you know, the whole intention for the Pickled Heart is to spread love, hope, and courage. And I hope today that you've gotten maybe a little more hope about meditating, that it's not this big bad wolf that nobody wants to talk about or be around, but that it's actually a gift of love. I hope for any of you who are listening today, if you have been going through some hard times and maybe you feel alone, I'm here to remind you, You're far from alone. You are thought of. You're so worth it, and you are loved. So make sure that you tell yourself at least 2 times a day, I can, I will, and I'm so worth it. Yes, you are. God bless you. And until next time, thank you for attending.